Okay, we're back. And Kermit, looking at the different posts on social media and on Facebook and Instagram and so forth, it looks kind of like there's not a lot of people familiar with your backstory from like when maybe your high school years, how you got into basketball initially. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how did you first get into basketball?
That's a funny story. As growing up, like every kid, I played, basketball, baseball, football, name it. We would play it in the playgrounds. But I didn't really take basketball that seriously. I loved football and baseball. Now, when I was growing up in the little leagues, I was really good in baseball. I'd always win the MVP with the CYO leagues and stuff like that, which is a Catholic youth organization. And back then, they had playground directors. And the playground directors were the 10 and under, 12 and under, 14 and under. Then you're in probably high school, so you wouldn't be playing anymore of the playground stuff. So growing up, all we really had was the Redskins in Washington. Now, the Senators were there, but they left and went to Minnesota. So we loved football. I mean, I loved football. So I didn't start, but I was on the varsity my junior year and my senior year in high school. My sophomore year, I was too small to play high school football. I think I was 98 pounds. And so I played on a 100-pound tackle team that wasn't part of the high school, but it was just an organization that you could play, and I loved football. So what happened, playing different sports, it came to my senior year. I started as a senior on the football team. I even played tennis. I even went out for the baseball team, but football was my love. But when my senior year came, I had nothing else to look forward to. So my best friend name was Glenn Price, who was a star of the team, averaging about 30 points a game, asked me, he says, Kermit, will you go out for the basketball team? I said, well, okay. He says, I'll give you a ride to school and a ride home if you go out for the team. And now in D.C., the weather is bad, not like Michigan or a place like that, but it's cold and it's rainy and it's snow. It had more snow back then than we're talking about 60 years ago or 55 years ago. So it was a lot of snow. So I said, okay, I'll go out for the team. So when football was over, I transitioned over to the basketball team. And honestly, I only wanted to get a ride to school and a ride home. Wasn't caring about if I was going to get in the games or not. But I knew being 6'4", and I played enough on the playground so that I thought I wouldn't make a fool of myself. Mm-hmm. So I went out for the team. And what happened, some of the guys didn't do their schoolwork, so they got cut off the team. So all of a sudden I got put into some of the games. In some games I played okay. In some games I never even got in the game. Mm. And so it was kind of embarrassing because I was a halfway decent football player. And other sports I played in, I was pretty good. Nothing spectacular, just pretty good.
Well, your buddy though, he was like the guy.
Oh, he was averaging 30 points a game.
That's
he was six
in a 32-minute game.
6'9". He could play. Glenn Price could play. And
was the team overall pretty good?
Yes. I think we were like 18-6.
Oh, that's not bad.
And we had some players, but some of the good players got thrown off because they didn't do any schoolwork. Mm. So some games I got in and I maybe could score 12 points. Some games I got in, didn't score any points. Some games I didn't even get in at all. But it didn't bother me because I didn't take basketball seriously. But when I saw how people viewed me now in school, where they used to say, hey, Kermit, you're a good athlete. They looked at me and said, boy, you need to work on your basketball. You're not too good. And so it hurt me.
Did they expect you to be able to, maybe dominate inside a little bit more?
No.
Dunk it or anything? Because you were 6'4". You're pretty tall.
6'4", maybe 150 pounds.
Real thin, huh?
I was pathetic. But the thing is that it bothered me because self-image, growing up, it wasn't a very pleasant situation. And to get some recognition as a football player, some recognition as a tennis and other athletic things that I did, I said, this is not good. So after the year got out, I don't know when the year stopped, I read a book about a guy named Spencer Haywood. He's from Detroit, and he was on the Olympic team. And I watched him play a game, and he blocked a shot with 2 hands. I said, I've never seen that before. And then I read that he had a weight vest. And I said, oh, my goodness, he has a 20-pound weight vest, and he runs with it. Well, then you had James Brown, who's from Washington, D.C., and you'll see him on the NFL Today. He does the game. He's the co-host, I think, of NFL CBS. I think it's CBS.
Yeah, CBS.
And he was one of the best high school players, and he went to a school called the Mafia High School, which dominated everything back in those days. And he jumped rope. So I said, okay, I'm going to put these 2 things together, and I want to improve enough so when I go to the playgrounds, that's it. I won't humiliate myself. So I started, but see, I try to tell all these young people and people's parents, I imagined in my mind, if I jumped rope, I was going to get better. If I jumped rope with a weight vest, I was going to be a better jumper. So I started jumping in my neighborhood 100 times. A week later, up to 200. A week later, up to 400. I would double it every week or even go more. I got to the point when I was jumping rope 10,000 times a night with a 20-pound weight vest. My neighbors didn't like it because they didn't like hearing the noise of the rope hitting the concrete. But I was very lucky to live 2 blocks away from the #1 playground in the Washington, D.C. area for basketball. It was Rudolph Playground. Now, Monday through Thursday, the brothers came to play. Nobody played on Friday. Nobody, nowhere. And Saturday, Sunday, they went to various other places, but I knew where they were. Rose Park, Luzon, Candy Cane, all the different places where you had tremendous basketball players in Washington, D.C. So I started going down to the playground, and I improved so much, so fast, that there were 2 sides of the basketball court where the beginners played on one side of the full court, and on the other side of the court, the full court, you had college players, you had really good high school players. And I really didn't get into games too much with the big guys, but everybody could see that I was getting better so quickly.
Yeah.
Because I would jump rope. And then when the lights would go out, which they had lights in D.C. on the playgrounds, at 11 or whatever time it was, I would jump rope. Yeah. And if it took me an hour, hour and a half, I'd do 10,000 times. Now, it wouldn't always be exactly 10,000. One night it might be 11 because I wasn't counting right. The next night might be 9,000.
Yeah.
But I would never miss a night. I would never miss a night. And I got to be such a great leaper in just a matter of time. And John Thompson, who was coach of not Georgetown, he was coach of St. Anthony's High School at that time, would stay over. You know, a lot of guys would play. Then they would go to the cars where you could drink beer, listen to music, and, but I would be the only one on the court still jumping rope. But he was coaching St. Anthony's. And I remember what he said to me one day. He says, young man, come here. He says, either you're going to become a good player or you're going to have no knees and you're going to be in a wheelchair. Because I would just be jumping and jumping and jumping. Yeah. But I could imagine myself being a better and better player. So I tell parents and everybody else, if somebody said, I want you to jump rope 10,000 times, you better do it, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Right.
But because I could envision in my imagination that I was going to be better and better and better, I jumped rope, and I did get better. Now, here's the problem. I didn't have outside shooting skills. Right. And I didn't have dribbling ability. But inside, I could jump. I could dunk anything. I could block shots. And I just didn't have basketball skills. Right. But because you had some of the best college players in the country coming to that playground, and they're telling me what to do, what to work on, and they're giving me encouragement. Oh, you're getting better, Kermit.
Who is, you've told me before.
We had
Dantley.
Not only Adrian Dantley, Kenny Carr, Austin Carr, Sid Catlett, Collis Jones, Bernie Williams, Fatty Taylor, Buck Williams played for Notre Dame and played for Utah Jazz. Yeah. Later on, we had a lot of great players that never went to school, but they were great ball players. And we had about 10 guys that made the NBA from playing on the playgrounds. And it'll never happen again.
That's incredible.
But we had, and I kept getting better. So one day, one of my neighbors, and I only had planned to get better on the playground. I didn't care about anything else. Yeah. I had a nasty neighbor named Mr. Sickles. And sometimes I would have to jump outside my house making noise. I mean, with the rope hitting the rope, hitting the concrete. He says, I hear you think you're good now. And I said, no, I didn't say that, Mr. Sickle. Well, you act like you're being good now. I said, well, no. If you're so good, you should try for that all-star team over there at St. John's. I said, what all-star team? Was an all-star team with people who think they can play? No, who can play? I said, well, I'll try out. Okay, I want to see you try out.
Do you think that he wanted to motivate you but couldn't do it?
And he was a nasty man.
He was so angry. He just pushed you in the right direction.
Nothing positive about that man to this day. I couldn't stand him. That's almost 55 years ago. But what happened? I said, no, I'll try out for it. So first of all, I had to find out. Every senior that played high school basketball in the Washington, D.C. area had to have a tryout. You didn't have to be all city or all metropolitan, which is the top.
Yeah.
You can try if you were a senior. They had to at least let you try out. They didn't think you were ever going to make it. So I hitched a ride that day. I didn't have nice shoes. I didn't have nice anything, but I hitched a ride, and a guy, it was about, I would say 4 miles away from where I lived. And I hitchhiked a ride. I got to St. John's. And I walk into St. John's with all these other guys that are all state or all city. And I sign up. And Morgan Wooten, a very famous coach from DeMatha High School, which was sometimes named the #1 high school in the country in basketball.
Yeah.
And they beat Lou Alcindor at Power Memorial, were the only teams that beat them.
Yeah.
He says, what school did you go to? I said, went to Calvin Coolidge. He says, okay. He said, you played on the team, right? I said, yes. He says, well, we played Calvin Coolidge. I don't remember you. I said, well, Coach, I was sick that game. I wasn't sick. I was sitting on the bench. And so he had to, because I played, he had to let me try out. But I had improved so much in my jumping ability and my conditioning.
Yeah.
When we tried out, I played halfway decent. I wasn't going to make the team, but because that's where all the high school, all the college coaches came to look at the prospective people they want to recruit.
Right.
They saw me running around 6'4", hustling, jumping, and I didn't have a lot. But a lot of coaches said, "Son, you have potential." So the first coach that came to me was from a school called Western New England College, and he says, "You know what? I think you're going to be good one day. I'll offer you a scholarship right now." And I had no scholarship offers. I was probably going to the Vietnam War, to be honest with you. This is about 1969. He says, I'll give you a scholarship offer right now if you don't come back. I don't want you coming back to practice.
He didn't want anybody else to see you.
See me. He says, I said, no. Why would I do that? I said, I'm just here to see how good I can be. He says, I'm offering you a scholarship. And I looked the school up when I went home. It wasn't a bad school, little school. But, I had no other scholarships anywhere. I wasn't going anywhere. But I said, no. I said, that's being a coward. If I go because I'm afraid I'm going to fail or not play better, no. So I went back, and I played okay. Not just okay. But then George Washington came up to me. Georgetown came up to me. Maryland University came up to me. And that's when Lefty Driesell said, we're going to become the UCLA of the East. And it wasn't Lefty Driesell. It was, what's his name? It was assistant coach.
Oh, I see.
I forget his name, but he'll come to me in a few seconds. And he says, well, we'll offer you a scholarship. And my father said, oh, yeah, you should go there. And Rutgers came to me. Rutgers wanted to give me a scholarship offer. And like a lot of guys said, oh, my God, these people's giving me a scholarship offer. I'm going to tell you a funny story. So some of the coaches said to me, well, Kermit, we'd like to go talk to your coach about your career. I said, my coach has been sick for a couple of months. I don't think you want to go talk to him. I don't know if he's in. I was scared to death because I didn't sometimes even get into games.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what he was going to say to them. So I said, well, he's been sick. Well, we'll catch up with him. Okay. Well, so I went and visited Maryland University, and my father wanted me. I was back with my father and my stepmother then. He wanted me to. He said, go to Maryland. I said, Dad, I'm not that good. I wasn't even playing for my high school team. You want me to go to Maryland University? All this, they're becoming a power. I said, I'd never get off the bench. So the American University coach was Tom Young, Tom Davis. They all became really good coaches, not superstar coaches, but Final Four. Rutgers went undefeated that year, and they got beat in when Michigan, UCLA, and Indiana was in it. It was at Philly, I think. They got beat. So American University took me out to dinner. I'm going to take you out to dinner. I said, okay. I had never been out to dinner in my life, ever. I was 17 years old, never been out to dinner. So they take me to a restaurant. I sit down, and they said, when they start talking about, American University, I never heard of the school. It's in Washington, D.C., and I had never even heard of it.
How far from your house there?
Oh, I would say 5 miles or so.
Just 5 miles.
Now, here's the thing. There's Rock Creek Park. You ever hear of Rock Creek Park?
No, I'm not.
It's a big park, and it divides one part of the city to the other part.
Oh, okay.
And the whites live on one side,
segregated,
and the blacks live on the other side.
Yeah.
And we would never go past a certain part of Rock Creek Park.
So you didn't know. It could have been anything over there. You wouldn't have known about it.
No, wouldn't have known about it at all. And if you went over there, you better work on that kind of side back then, or you would get stopped by the police or something like that. So I go out to dinner, and they said, "What do you like to eat, Kermit?" I said, "Well," I looked at it as a steak. I had never had steak in my life. And I said, "Yeah, I'd like to have a steak and potatoes. That's wonderful," because I never really ate at home. We didn't really. We don't even go to that situation.
Right.
So they bring the steak to the table, and it was a big steak with potatoes and everything. I thought it was for everybody at the table, the 3 coaches that were there.
Yeah.
I said, "This is mine?" They said, "Yeah, that's yours." I said, "This whole thing is mine?" I said, "I'll sign with your school tomorrow if you're going to feed me like this."
So had the other guy just said, "Look, I don't want you to come back," and a steak was involved, you think you ever would have went to American?
You know what? I did. You know something? I thought I would be. It was cowardly, to say
no. I understand.
You understood that.
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, no." I said, "I'm gonna keep going back," because I had been practicing jumping the rope and everything. I said, "Let me see."
And the guy didn't bring a steak or anything. Huh?
No. But when they took me out to eat, and I sat down and I had a steak for the first time in my life. And then after that, the coaches, we sat down and talked about, Kermit, we think you have potential. Nobody ever said that to me before.
Yeah.
And they took me up to the campus of American University, which is in D.C. It's in the richest part of D.C.,
right,
where all the senators and congressmen and very, very rich people live. And they took me on campus. Now listen to this. We get on campus, and there are beautiful flowers, beautiful trees. I was not used to that. It smelled nice.
Yeah.
I just had never been. It was, to me, it looked like heaven.
Right.
From inner city D.C., the trash can stinking, the garbage can stinking, the rats, the rats running around. I mean, it was a different world.
Yeah.
So they took me up to the dorm.
5 minutes away.
Oh,
and just a completely different existence, world. Huh?
Then they took me up to the dorm, and the dorm was new then. A white elevator, and I walked up to the room. Room was air conditioned. And if you know how it is in Detroit,
right,
without an air conditioning,
humidity,
just think about it.
Yeah,
I had always grew up like that. Wait, another thing, they had blinds on the window. I had never had blinds on the window in any of my places. So when the sun came up, it's in your room.
Yeah,
and then they had 7-foot beds. Oh, listen, my bed at home was 6 foot, and I'm 6'4", and they had footboards. So you couldn't stretch out between anything.
Oh, geez.
It was then it had a pillow. Now listen to this. I had never had a pillow in my life because my grandmother, who I grew up with, who was born in 1886, thought you would suffocate with a pillow. So I had never had a pillow in my life. They had pillows, nice blankets on the bed, had showers, had nice bathrooms, nice food. I said, well, this is heaven. For me, I had never been around. And the thing about it, it wasn't a situation where you worried about somebody stealing anything. Right. People left their doors open, the dorm rooms. I couldn't believe that, because in D.C., things would be gone, unfortunately. I mean, it just an environment, and everybody was so friendly. I said, heck yeah, I'll come to your school. Yeah, so they said, well, I was the last person they recruited as a freshman team. You had to have freshman teams back then.
Yeah.
And so I was the last one they recruited. And this was funny. So in the newspaper, like 2 or 3 weeks later, then I signed to go to American. Now, first of all, it was difficult to get me in. American University, the average SAT score probably was about 1350, and it was perfect with 1600. I got 800. I was lucky to get 800. But when you do the tests like the verbal test, all the words I always grew up with, MF, F, MF,
right.
All just negative, nasty words. So when you're reading all these different things when you're taking the test, you're saying, whoa, my goodness, what does this word mean? I've never heard these words before.
Right.
But I wasn't in an environment that was conducive to being successful for these different tests.
Yeah.
So after going up there and visit the campus, and everybody was so friendly. Oh, hope you make it. I hope you come up to hope you make it to American University, young man. I said, hey, I'm glad to come. I'd be glad to come. Then they sent me tennis shoes. Oh my goodness, they sent me shorts and everything else like that. And I looked pathetic in shorts though. I was like 6'5", then now 160. And I told you, my neighbors would make fun of me when I walk outside with shorts. There was no. I tell you, that's why I was so humbled all the time. Yeah. My neighbors would say, I come out with shorts. They say, son, go back in there, put on some clothes.
Look, and and the thing too is that, like, I'm 6'2", but we're eye to eye when we're sitting down because your legs are so long. So with that thin and long legs, and I know it's the short shorts too. So that. Oh
my goodness! The neighbors would say, "Son, go back in. You look like a flagpole. If a good wind come up, we will never see you again. You'll fly." I said, "Thank you very much." And you know what it is, though. I was happy to have an opportunity to leave.
Yeah.
And when they would send me the shoes, I would be so proud to have a new pair of shoes and Chuck Taylors, high top whites.
Right.
That's what everything wore. But it motivated me to even jump rope and play harder. And one down on the playground, what they would always say is, Kermit, you know what? You work hard. And I would never complain. Yeah. I play against the very best. And I wasn't ready, though, for their competition. Because you had guys from Notre Dame, from all these other schools that were good. Yeah. And the game was a rough game. But I was so skinny. But I could jump. I could jump out the gym.
Well, and working hard too is the most transferable skill in anything, So if you were over there grinding and really putting in the effort, then they could see potential. Because if you're already doing that, that's something that a lot of people, no matter what their skill level is, are not willing to do.
Well, when you grow up with nothing and you're not around people that care about you, and you really don't have a future. And the only role models we had were athletes and people in music.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's when you couldn't drink at the water fountains, your bathrooms were white and black. It was just, you just didn't believe you had a chance.
Yeah.
But sports gave you an opportunity.
Right.
And I was willing to, my brother and he made pro football. We were willing, honestly, to die trying to become good. So it was nothing. If you had told me to jump 20,000 times a night, if it's going to make it, I was going to jump 20,000 times a night.
Yeah.
And if I died trying, I'm happy with it because I'm going to get out of the situation I'm in. It was not a very pleasant home situation.
Yeah.
It wasn't pleasant at all.